Hello and welcome to Property Question Time. I'm Stephen Galpin and this is the show where you can have your property related questions answered by a team of property experts. And joining me today is Lucy Waters, Managing Director of Aria Finance. Welcome. And Glenn Jacobs, Director of Next Home London Estate Agents. Welcome to you, Glenn.
Thank you.
Okay, let's get straight on with the questioning. And Glenn, you're going first. What are the most common reasons for a home sale falling through?
Wow. I think right now I'm having a real problem with AI generated discounts requested upon exchange, if I'm honest with you. 4 last week I've had. What people are doing is getting reported to, getting searches, getting the mortgage offer, the survey, the level 2/level 3s, drone footage, roof inspections, damp inspections on PDF documents, putting it into AI and generating discount requests on the basis of that.
And unfortunately, AI tells you what you want to hear, so precisely. It's all biased, isn't it?
It's fully biased. There's no caveats to it. There's no. If you've got a standard Victorian house has nooks and crannies all over the place. Basements always got condensation and damp in the basements, always. But you're buying somewhere on the premise of you know what you're buying. You're not buying a brand new build. You're buying a Victorian house that sometimes has signs of movement. That doesn't mean it's falling down. That means there's signs of movement. It's lived for a war. It's that sort of thing that you try and explain to someone, and then they realise and come back to you. Well, you're acting for the vendor. I'm paid by the vendor. I'm instructed by the vendor, but I do have a duty of care to advise you correctly. But the problem is you've gone to the point of exchange before presenting this information to me.
Do you think the proposal to effectively bring back the home buyers information packs is going to help that?
I think it could potentially help or maybe hinder, because you might end up with some sort of redress claims, because if certain things aren't documented in that, depends how far you want to go with them. If you have is it going to include a level 2/level 3 survey on a property?
Who knows? Precisely,
and that's kind of the issue that you've got. If there's any information omitted, it looks like you're being sneaky, I suppose, at that stage. It's a real problem, and it's taking a lot of my time, and it's what I'm here to do. But if you've got, not only that, I mean, AI is also elongating the scenarios at the moment. It's a problem right this moment, AI.
But I don't suppose AI can really judge or put into context the information that it's giving you. I mean, you might be buying that property at a super low price that takes into account all the potential defects, complications, or whatever else, and AI won't context that, will it?
No. Also, if that's, you probably had the majority of that information before making the offer. I know you mentioned some surveys and things that come back afterwards, but actually where that conversation should happen is when striking the price, because ultimately that's where you need to start pulling all the market information, and you've been to see it. You should have done enough diligence to be able to offer the right money, unless something really horrible comes out of the woodwork.
My job is to overcome objections, long and short of it. That's what I'm there to do. Objections in regards to price, and objections in regards to why they're not purchasing the property. But if you're purchasing a dilapidated property at a certain level, if you're expecting a vendor/landlord to then decrease by a further 40, 50, 60,000 pounds, and then the property is going to be worth peak market level, why is the vendor going to pay that in effect for you to benefit? Why don't they do that and then benefit from the market level? Yes, there's scenarios where vendors can't put the money out of their own pocket, but that's the counter argument to that is, well, you're asking that amount of money. Why don't the vendor just put that into that property and then get that actual level? They're giving it to you for this amount for the convenience of not having to do it. That's basically what they're doing. But if you want to reduce any further, in answer to the question, another avenue that's causing sales to fall through a lot at the moment is time. Conveyancing is taking so much longer. I think it's an average of 5-6 months at the moment. What I'm finding, and one solicitor that I'm dealing with had a big conference with a few solicitors at the moment, because there's solicitors that are generating 100+ inquiries at the point of receiving the contract pack. But all that's done is by putting the AI.
But the risk of upsetting Lucy, isn't that the lender's issue, that they're asking solicitors so many questions these days Because that's what the solicitors will say.
I mean, they're not templated to that particular property. They're generic. And I'm sure a lender doesn't care about generic inquiries. It's specific to that property. So what they're finding, up to 100 inquiries I've heard, just after receiving the LPE1, the fixtures and fittings protocol forms and the contract. Up to 100 inquiries. It's ridiculous, but that's all generated again by AI. And I think at the moment we're at a stage where it's not really benefiting the transaction times or sales. It's actually finding its way of being a hindrance at the moment.
Anything to add to that?
Well, I think on the solicitor's side, what I would say is my experience of the process is the buyer should instruct their solicitor that should make inquiries on their behalf initially. So if those inquiries are coming out pretty much day one, that won't be lender driven. The lender will then come in and potentially add another 100 inquiries after that. But usually how it works is your solicitor's there to protect you, raise the inquiries that they think necessary. Those inquiries get answered, and then when the mortgage offer comes out and the lender's lawyers are instructed, they then raise the title inquiries that they think are relevant, which in effect should marry to a certain degree with what the other solicitors raised, because to protect the lender is to protect the buyer. They're very unified in terms of the queries. So we get problems with solicitors as well, and not all solicitors are created equal. And I think it's really important when people are choosing solicitors to make sure they choose one who is sensible and experienced. And yes, you can look at a quote and say, this is a really low cost solicitor's fee, but it's probably a conveyancer who doesn't necessarily have the same miles on the clock that an experienced property conveyancer would have, and therefore you're going to get more of that, I think. But customers often think, well, why would I pay that when I can pay that? And it's just trying to educate people as to...
And again, in London in particular, you can always see the red flags when somebody out of London wants to appoint their sort of local family solicitor, perhaps down the south of England or in the north of England, so not used to leasehold properties, for instance.
No.
Trying to come to terms with the leasehold sort of ethos, and just causes a mess, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Adds weeks, if not months, to the
Absolutely.
period. Okay, all right, good one. Okay. Lucy, is there a particular financial reform that would have a positive impact on the UK residential property market at the moment?
Financial reform. I think if we were to look specifically at development finance and say it's not necessarily a financial reform, but a planning reform to enable developers to build more houses, I think that would have a huge impact, because at the moment we are constrained by supply. And when it comes to even rents, and you'll obviously be seeing this in what you do, but rent, where they've tried to actually make renting more affordable, it's gone completely the other way because there's 100%. Such a lack of supply and landlords exiting the market and things like that. So we actually just have to build more homes. And I think one of the first places that is getting stuck is on the planning side of things. A lot of developers feel really disheartened by the planning process, which is just getting harder and harder all the time. So I think, okay, it's not a financial reform, but a planning reform would be a good step in the right direction. And dare I say, I think a change to stamp duty would be a really big thing. Now, I don't know what that looks like, and I'm not even going to try and guess at what that looks like. Obviously, it's a topical point of conversation at the moment because of Andy Burnham's views on scrapping stamp duty. I think the challenge with how that might end up channeling through is that the sort of higher value end of the market pays for the lower end of the market, which is another form.
What about simply just switching stamp duty as a liability to the seller rather than the buyer?
I don't dislike that. I think that's I think that would be a good way, because it then you don't have to come up with it as a physical layout on purchase, which is a massive challenge. The annual property taxes, I really dislike that, because I think it forces people out of homes, and even though it might not affect the masses, it will the impact that it will have on a lot of homeowners is massive. And buy-to-let, if they do it on buy-to-let, what's left in the margins in buy-to-let? There's nothing, is there? I mean, buy-to-let landlords have, despite the press that they get, have suffered some huge financial penalties over the years. And if they had to pay an annual tax, I just don't think that...
The margins are just not there.
They're not there.
There's already a stealth tax with the licences being implemented at a grand a piece.
I just feel the idea of switching it to the vendor rather than the buyer would work well. And also, you've got to balance that against. Don't forget, if you sell your own home and it is your own home, whatever profit you make, and there've been some huge profits on that people have made and enjoyed, is tax free. So I don't think the imposition of the stamp duty liability change would be that great or that unreasonable.
I agree, and there's always as you go through the transformation where you have to work out whether it's just tough luck if you paid it on the way in and you're paying it on the way out, or whether
Lucy, it'd be very easy, because when you pay it, if you're one of the people that paid it under the old regime of going in, then you deduct that from the payment you're going to make going out.
Yeah, there's a way to balance the books for sure. Yeah. But I think that the theory of it would work well. I mean, there's also an argument, what about if you just scrap stamp duty altogether? I know that's a big statement, but the market would move, wouldn't it?
Oh, it sure would. Okay, well, on that note, we'll go to the break. So thank you both very much. Join me after the break when we'll be asking Lucy and Glenn more of your questions. Hello and welcome back to part 2 of Property Question Time with Lucy Waters and Glenn Jacobs. I've had my house on the market now for some time with little interest being shown. My agent is suggesting that we have an open house event to stimulate interest. What do the panel think of this idea? Well, perhaps first of all you could explain to us the principle of an open house showing.
It's one of my favourite things in estate agency, I must admit. When you have a good open house, there's not a lot better. It has to be on a Saturday in my eyes, because most people are out viewing on a Saturday. It has to be for a good 45 minutes to an hour. You have the house to yourself, so the awkwardness of having the vendor, ideally, not being there, bogging at everybody walking around their house, and maybe pointing out things that purchasers don't really care about, if I'm honest with you. But the idea is to get a lot of purchasers or potential purchasers to come and view at the same time. I do it tactfully. I've been moaned at before because it feels like you're at a cattle show and all that sort of stuff. But the idea is to have a purchaser see competition and create that competition and create a buzz about the property. And then when people come away from that after they've viewed the property, they know they can't take the mick with offers and waste people's time with offers. They know that there's other interested parties, even if the other parties aren't interested. They know that those other people, because you would upsell the interest, if I'm honest, you would say, you would sort of project that there's so much interest in the property. You see the amount of people that see it. You're going to have to come in with a solid offer. You need a confident estate agent to conduct that as well. There's no point having a quiet estate agent standing in the corner letting all these people. It has to be someone that's there, that's
going to engage with it.
Exactly, engage with it. The problem with the listener and viewer with the question is you can't just launch one. You're not going to have a stagnant property there and then go, all right, we'll have an open house on a Saturday. You're going to have a pricing strategy and a marketing strategy that leads to that. So if you're going to adjust your price to a carrot dangling level, that's what's going to make an impact in the market. You're going to have to adjust your price to something that's going to entice people to come and view the property, because nobody's going to purchase it unless they come and view the property.
So I just wonder in some ways whether part of good practice, shall we say, for estate agents would be to have an obligatory sort of program. You know, I'm taking this property on, I'll take it first of all for 3 weeks. At the end of 3 weeks, if we've not achieved any interest, this is going to be my suggestion. We're going to reduce the price by 5%, 6%, whatever, and make that an obligatory part of the agency contract. I think that would be really helpful. People then wouldn't feel as though they're being cheated or they're being conned or they're being pushed down a particular path.
I do a 2-week period personally. Yeah, I will always go, look, if someone's sort of disagreeing with the pricing, I'll go, look, I'm here to be instructed by you. However, this is my evidence. This is what I think, and this is why I think we're going to get the best price by doing it this way. If you want me to try your pricing, we'll have a 2-week period, because the first 2 weeks are super important to me. You're going to get the property launched. The first Saturday is going to be that open house. So let's launch it full of photos, full of videography, and have a full week. Let's not have stragglers in the middle of the week at 7 o'clock at night thinking they can make silly offers. Let's have everybody into your property. If you're keen to sell the property, everybody into the property at 1 o'clock on Saturday, for argument's sake. Then after that first week, that's the second week where you're going to have your second viewings. People might take a little bit more time in the property, see something that they haven't noticed, and then have a like a best and final offer scenario at that stage. But those 2 weeks are key. And if you've overpriced it and not getting the attention after those 2 weeks, that's on your idea in terms of pricing. I've been honest with you from day one, and let's try and go down your route. But that's how I would present it.
If a property hasn't sold or created any interest, just by having an open house isn't necessarily going to stimulate anything, is it?
There's 2 reasons why a property doesn't sell. Generally, it's the price or the condition. Depending on condition, there's always a price for it. So it's generally down to the pricing.
In that word condition, would you put presentation into that?
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah. There's a lot more staged photos now than I've ever seen before. There's a lot more staging that goes into photography. I know of a couple of firms that do AI and whatnot, which is illegal under the Property Misdescriptions Act, but there's companies that come in here and stage the property for the photos. So yeah, presentation. It's just like a recruitment job board as well. I mean, if the job doesn't sound good, you're not going to click it. Exactly the same as a property. If it doesn't look good and catch your eye.
So are you suggesting there's AI programs that make your photos look a lot better?
Yes, yes. Unfortunately, but yes.
There we go. Anything to add to that, Lucy?
Probably the only angle that I've got is what we see. We do quite a lot of bridging finance in the market, and often the exit for bridging finance is sale of property, and we often have scenarios where the valuation comes back lower than the intended marketing price or the actual marketing price. Now, that can be viewed that the marketing price is inflated, or on the other side of the coin, the value is being conservative because ultimately their PI is on the line for mortgage valuation. So perhaps there's somewhere in the middle where that meets and is the right number. But we actually do see it where people have stipulations or put on them in their bridging loan conditions that they have to reduce the price after a certain period of time to get the interest going in line with the valuation. So it's quite interesting just seeing it from a different angle of where people are trying to generate that interest. And obviously that stagnation point is big, because if it does stagnate, then sometimes we just see these properties sitting on the market forever.
And it does nobody any favours. It doesn't do the seller any favours in regards to you've got your property sitting there and it's actually devaluing, but if it's been on for a year, it's devaluing. It's
the level of your security going down, isn't it? Sort of week by week almost. Lucy, your question. In the past, property inflation has helped create financial security for many homeowners. Do the panel think that those days are now over, and that we should really look at home ownership as being just that, rather than a profitable investment too? In other words, conflating those two factors in terms of the value.
There was a period of time where everybody thought about what their property would be worth after X number of years of ownership, or if they did certain alteration to the property, you know, can they add an extension, can they do a loft conversion and things like that. And I think it's one thing where there's a value add opportunity and someone's looking to enhance the value through works versus people buying to ride the wave of property increases and make money and, like you say, create financial security. I think when you're buying a home, you should be buying a home, and that should be the main factor. But there is a small subset of people who take advantage of the tax benefits of not having to pay capital gains on their primary residence, and they will live in a house for a couple of years or whatever the statutory limitation is that you don't have to pay capital gains, and just roll on and on and on and on, and they move and they're not wedded to any property, and they have limited resource, so they want to own their own home, but they also want to do property development. So there is a community of people that do that, and I think there's nothing wrong with that at all. If we're talking about the masses, people that have day jobs, they're not in property development, they are buying somewhere to live, then nobody wants to buy badly. So, you know, when you're talking to people, it's really important that they can see that they're not on the wrong side of the purchase, because then ultimately when they go to sell it, it's going to be the reverse. But I think as long as you're buying at the right level, it should just be a case of you're buying it as a home, and you're not looking at what the equity value might be.
I suppose the question is born from mainly people in my generation who were always taught that if you buy property, you're going to make money because it's just automatically going to go up. And those days in these difficult times are over. You can't guarantee that the value is going to go up just because you bought it.
No.
And then on top of that, you've got this, as you mentioned, Lucy, it's free from any kind of capital gains tax or any tax if you make a profit on your home. And a lot of people have relied on that for funding their credit cards, for funding their lifestyle. And sometimes that's perception of theoretical profit that you've got tax-free has caused people to get into debt problems.
And that's certainly if people then look to mortgage to pay off what, you know, they're basically borrowing against the equity that they've created, that can definitely be a challenge. And we see that there's a subset of the market where people take a second mortgage, which is a perfectly legitimate product, and it's a great product for people that are looking to consolidate debts or do home improvements, things like that, but it has to be used responsibly. We do come across customers who are in a debt cycle and they borrow more money and then they come back and all of a sudden they've got that secured loan sitting behind their first mortgage, and then they've suddenly got another £30,000 worth of unsecured debt and they want to consolidate it again. And I think that's dangerous, and that's where people get themselves into trouble, because the music will stop eventually. But when it comes to creating equity in your home and seeing that, okay, I bought it for 400, now it's worth 500. If you're then looking to buy your next property and you're going up, you're going to have the same percentage increase if the market's gone up anyway. So it's actually, in that case, it's not really doing you anything. Yes, it's gone up, but so is the rest of the market. Whereas if you add value, that's different because you're outperforming the market.
Yep.
So with this government desperately trying to demonstrate that they're going to have full funding for all their ideas and projects, do you think the idea of this capital gains tax-free home selling is going to last?
It's really hard to second guess, but it would be an area. It would be an area that they could immediately have tax upside.
It looks like an easy target for me. I don't know what you think.
No, absolutely.
Okay, well, on that pessimistic note, we're going to end the show. So a big thank you to Lucy Waters, Managing Director of Aria Finance. Thank you, Lucy. And to you too, Glenn. Glenn Jacobs, Director of Next Home. Thank you for coming in.
Pleasure.
Been really
Thanks,
good to have you
Stephen.
both in. That's all we've got time for. So I'm Stephen Galpin. Join me next time on Property Question Time.